everyone. Thank you again for joining us at the 2024 Sloan Sports Analytics Conference Competitive Advantage Talks Room, presented by Kager, the Craft Analytics Group. My name is David Rhodes. I'm a first-year MBA student here at MIT Sloan, and it's my pleasure to introduce the presentation, Using Analytics to Drive Competitive Success for Team USA. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Elliot Schwartz, Performance Innovation Lead at the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, to the stage. Thank you.
All right. David, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm an MIT alum, and to be invited to speak at this analytics conference was very, very heady for me, and I'm so honored to be here. So thank you, David, and thanks for everyone involved with organizing this. I'm going to talk a little bit about our USOPC Performance Innovation Team. So it's basically Nerds Are Us. It's data analytics and technology in the service of athlete performance, health, and wellness. So we're a small but mighty team, as you'll see in the middle, or in a minute. But our strategic vision is really geared toward helping our Team USA athletes be the best that they can be at every competition, but in particular, the Olympics and the Paralympics. So we are a United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, so we field the teams for those delegation events. The key pillars of our performance innovation team are a software tool called Athlete360. That's the name of our athlete management system. So Athlete360, because it's wrapping a tool around the athletes that all of the people who are providing support to them can use. International competitive analytics, which will be the focus of today's presentation, and then technology and innovation. And I want to acknowledge my colleague Dan Webb is here. Dan is the Director of Performance Analytics on our team, and Dan really got the international competitive analytics from just ideas into a really great program and tool that we have now. And Dan also is managing the Athlete360 program. So anything you want to know about that athlete management system, Dan, if you could just raise your hand. Yeah, so I know a lot of you have talked to Dan already, but Dan is here, and thank you. And then a lot of folks from the Olympic and Paralympic movement are here, so thanks for everyone to be here. And it's just a huge team, like analytics and technology. It's definitely a team sport, so it's nice to be surrounded by a great, passionate team. Some of the challenges and the opportunities that we have, right? Like a challenge always presents an opportunity. In simple terms, so the USOPC is not funded by the government. That's a common misconception. We're one of the few organizations in the world that is not government funded, so no state-funded sports system. We're not funded by a national lottery. Like, our funding comes from pretty much our NBC television contract and then a lot of wealthy donors. So if you're a wealthy donor out there and if you're passionate about the Olympics and Paralympics, come find me or come find Dan or anyone else wearing USA. We will get you to the right place. So we have so our national governing bodies, so I think as Chris Jackson mentioned yesterday, like an Olympics in the summer is like 48 world championships. So it's a whole huge portfolio of sports. And then of course we have Winter Olympics and then Winter Paralympics and Summer Paralympics. A lot of sports. Some of the larger NGBs have a reasonable amount of staff, a good amount of funding, high membership. They may have people on their staff doing data and analytics. There are other NGBs that are really small, that are really operating on a shoestring, that don't have any of those people or tools. So we really have to meet people where they are and help them to help their athletes. Let's see, from a data standpoint, we don't have Hawkeye or Second Spectrum or any of these other companies giving us data on a silver platter. And so we've really got to figure out both how to collect and analyze our data. So that's a huge challenge for us. One other challenge with Olympic and Paralympic sports is that our athletes just don't compete at their highest level that many times. So it's a small data problem with any kind of analytics we might want to do to understand their performance or to support them. We do get data from a provider called Gracenote. So for all of our Olympic sports, they currently provide data. So it's high-level data like who won, who lost, what was the date, which competition was it, what was the level of competition, what was the score or the result, and the placement, and that's about it. So anything more detailed than that, we've got to find a way how to collect or break it down. And that's part of the work that we do as well. If we're lucky, an international federation in a given sport will provide us data in PDF format, or maybe through a web tool, but then you've got to scrape it. So that's also part of the effort that goes on. So it's not simple, and it takes a lot of work. And then finally, as you all know, if you're going to break down a performance, it generally comes down to watching and breaking down video. There is a lot of work going on in the automated video tagging field, and I'd love to see more talks at this conference about that. But that's a greater challenge than I think any of us realized. And so we're still in the place where video tagging takes a lot of time and a lot of someone's effort, and there's imperfect reliability. But that's what we need to really break down athlete performance. In terms of the competitive analytics work and some of the data sources that we're using on our team, this is a fraction of it. So Dan has really led the way on using ELO ratings. So ELO comes from chess, if anyone hasn't heard about that. Not chess boxing, but chess. And Dan has worked together with Professor Mark Glickman from Harvard to develop ELO ratings approaches for our whole portfolio of Olympic sports, both head-to-head, so things like team or combat sports, and then also multi-competitive sports, or multi-competitor sports, which is where you have many athletes competing against each other, and some examples are shown here: archery, gymnastics, figure skating, ski and snowboard, et cetera. So it's really understanding, the key to that is understanding a team or athlete's relative strength compared to international competitors over time. So it's all about who beat whom, but not by how much. And again, that data comes from Grace Note. We do some more work that we call performance funnels. So that's basically utilizing the ELO ratings to understand athlete career trajectories. And that's to really help us look at, especially for younger developing athletes, how is their career trajectory, whether it's related to placement on an international circuit, or it could be times in a given event. How is that trending compared to past world championship team members, championship medalists, Olympic team members, Olympic medalists, and so on. And I'm going to say Olympic a lot more than Paralympic, and I feel terrible doing that. One of the big challenges for us with Paralympics is that we even have less data than we do have on the Olympic side. And one of our big focus areas is how do we correct that and how do we do better at that? And I'm happy Jeremy Wilroy is here from Lakeshore Foundation. So he's a key partner for us to try to figure out how do we get more data for Paralympic events. Next type of analytics we do is Monte Carlo simulations. We do it in a couple different ways. So I mentioned Dan's done this great work on ELO ratings. He's also done great work on using that with Monte Carlo simulation to look at medal expectancy. And then what I'll be talking about today are some examples of using actual results or times or points to predict a range of outcomes and probabilities in an event, a multi-competitor event. And then finally, gap analysis is tried and true, not very glamorous and not fancy, but it's a really important way to help our athletes understand where they compare to their competitors in various aspects of their performance. All right, so case study number one, I picked a couple of sports that I thought would probably not be in other presentations here. So first we're going to talk about figure skating. So who watches figure skating at the Olympics? Who watches figure skating outside the Olympics? Yeah, exactly. So once every 4 years, it gets a lot of attention. So I'm going to talk about the Olympic figure skating team event. So that started in 2014 in Sochi. And it's kind of like a track meet or a swim meet, but for figure skating. So there are 8 event segments. So for the men, the 4 Olympic skating disciplines, men, women, pairs, and ice dance, there's call it a short program and a long program. And then each country can enter a skater or a team in each of those events. Based on your placement, you accumulate points for your team. So in the short programs, there are 10 teams that qualify through season performances leading up to the Olympics, 10 for first, 9 for second, and so on. And then the top 5 teams after those 4 short program events advance to the free skates, and that's essentially the medal round. So, and there's another interesting wrinkle. Each team can replace up to 2 of their entries when they go from the short program to the free skate. And in the free skate, it goes 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 for the points. And there's all kinds of complicated tie-breaking procedures because it happens quite frequently that there are ties. All right, so why did we do analytics for this? So there's a lot of strategy that goes into it, both in terms of just what gives us the best scoring opportunities for our team, but we also have to think about the subsequent individual events. And I'm showing a picture of Nathan Chen. So Nathan was 3-time defending world champion coming into the 2022 Olympics. He was our best hope for a medal and certainly our best hope for a gold medal in figure skating in Beijing. And as it happened, it was decided that the men's individual event was the very first event after the team event. And so we thought very long and hard, like, did we want Nathan competing 4 programs in 6 days? And how would doing the team event affect his potential performance in the individual event? And so things we were looking at are just what were our medal chances altogether? How would our medal chances be impacted by having Nathan not participate, do the short only, do the free skate only, or do both segments? And then also just looking at, in terms of our medal chances, like, it was very clear our most likely outcome was second place. Then the question was, what would it take for us to win gold? What would it take for us to fall to bronze? And what would have to happen for us to fall out of the medals completely? So that was really, those were the key things driving this work. Some assumptions that are associated just with the approach in general and with the Monte Carlo simulations. The first iteration of this model was done a couple months before the Olympics to help U.S. figure skating high performance sort out the different choices. And so at that point, no one's announced, which athletes are going to be in a team event. In fact, some countries haven't even selected their athletes for the Olympics yet. And so it's educated guesses just based on who's doing well from different countries. We used results from competitions that were in our selection procedures. And then we also, we've learned from what's happened in 2014, 2018, and then 2026 we'll have what happened in 22 as a guidepost. And then we just updated information whenever it was available. So I guess very crude Bayesian analysis, right? There was no explicit accounting for the impact of factors that might affect competition performance on the day. We just figured, how do we quantify all those things like physical health, how much sleep you got, your nutrition, nagging injuries, all those things. We just figured that's going to be represented in the distribution of possible scores that we figure out for each athlete. We also had to assume, like we often do in stochastic modeling, that every performance is independent of each other. And then what we did was we modeled the range of possible results, and we assumed a Gaussian because we did some experimentation with some other distributions, didn't find them to be better. Again, the small data problem. And then we also didn't try to do any particular accounting for someone who had recently strong results. Like an example was Brady Tennell in 2018, who kind of came out of nowhere in that Olympic season and actually won the national championship and made the Olympic team. All right, so our approach, very, very basic. So anyone out there who thinks analytics is intimidating, it's not. You can do a lot in Excel, although right now we're working on how do we create something that's going to work for a lot of sports using some code that could be modular and reapplicable. We used 10,000 Monte Carlo runs. So each run represented a mock competition. So a score for each athlete or couple was randomly selected from their particular normal distribution, simply characterized by the mean and the standard deviation based on the competitions that they had done earlier in that season. And then from each of those mock competitions, we determined the athlete's rank in the event, calculated how many points they won for their team, totaled it up, and then again went through, basically we ran through the steps of the competition as it would normally be. So we looked at, okay, after the short programs, who are the top 5, who advances to the free skate, using the tiebreaker procedures if necessary. So a lot of nested ifs, if anyone likes to work with Excel. Okay, so looking at the question of Nathan, so we looked at, again, Nathan in various scenarios, and you could see our most likely outcome in all cases was the silver medal, and you could see very little chance of gold, essentially. Some slight tweaks in that probability based on how much Nathan does or doesn't do, but basically the very quick and dirty of this is making the decision about Nathan's participation should just basically be about what he wanted to do and what would help him feel most prepared for his individual event. And he ended up opting to do the short program only. And the short program, the way the points work out, is the most important segment of this competition. It's really hard to make up ground in the free skate. And then, of course, you've got to be one of the top 5 teams to make that free skate. And so having Nathan in the short program was a big benefit. Looking now, so one nice thing about result-based Monte Carlo is it helps you understand a lot of what-if scenarios. So questions like what needed to be true for us to finish first. And so as of January 25th, so maybe like a month before the actual competition, our chance of gold was just about 6% according to the model. And so I looked at various metrics. So I segmented all the cases where we finished first and then just did statistics on those to figure out, again, what needed to be true for us to come out ahead. So I looked at our median and minimum points that we had to win in each segment. And then ROC is Russian Olympic Committee. So that was, every Olympics, they come up with a new TLA, 3-letter acronym, to basically determine how Russia's allowed to participate. ROC was what they used in 2022. So looking at that, basically green is where we were in range of what needed to be true for us to win. And red was basically what was out of range in terms of the actuals. So the first 3 events went really well. And I'll show this on a graph in a minute, and it looked like we might have a chance to get the gold. Everyone got all optimistic, but I'll show you that was very optimistic because it didn't really boost our probability that much. So this is, so the y-axis here is the percentage likelihood of us winning a given medal. So there's curves for gold, silver, bronze, and no medal. So the gold curve is the yellowish colored curve. I made that on purpose. So you can see it's way down at the bottom. We were likely to win silver, and we certainly wanted to safeguard that silver medal. So the vertical blue line indicates the actual start of the competition, and then what I did was I updated the model after each segment. So Nathan started off great. We got a little bit of a boost in our silver medal likelihood, but our gold didn't really change very much. Then our pairs team actually did better than they ever done. Oh, sorry, it was our dance team. They did really well, but it didn't really help our chances that much either. Basically, we needed to do our best, and our athletes were doing that, but we also needed Russia to fall on their faces, and that wasn't happening. So Russia basically did what they needed to do, and our chances didn't change. And then the big change happened in the free skates when Karen Chen didn't have her best performance, and she was narrowly outpointed by some other athletes, and that pretty much ended our chances for the gold medal. But we were pretty solid in the silver position. And then we had a little scare in the pairs event when the Japanese team did really well. So they were the team that was nipping at our heels, or at least trying to. And for a moment, it was a little bit scary. And then our dance team, Chalk and Bates, who won the World Championships last year, they really closed it out for us by winning the free dance event. So this was a useful way of tracking what were our chances, and then the outcomes were we were second in this event, but recently upgraded to gold with the doping disqualification of Kamila Valieva. Nathan achieved his personal best in the team event, so that really helped him feel ready for the individual event, because if any of you followed 2018, he had one of his worst performances ever in the short program team event, and then had an even worse performance in the short program in the individual event, and that sunk his chances for a medal. This time around, I think that experience really prepared him, and he nailed it in the short program in the team event, and then again, had great programs in the individual event and won the gold medal. And then Hubble Donahue, our dance team, won bronze in the individual ice dance event. All right, how am I doing for time? All right, we'll talk about gymnastics quickly. I want to leave time for questions. So I've been working a lot with the men's artistic gymnastics program lately. This is another application of Monte Carlo simulation, but the nature of their team event's a little bit different. It's basically in the team final, it's what they call 3 up, 3 count. So each athlete or each team can put up 3 athletes on a given apparatus, and all 3 of those scores count. For the men, there are 6 apparatus. And so it's basically 6 times 3, 18 scores. The sum of those 18 scores determines the medals in the men's team event. And in the team final, there are 8 teams who qualify. There are 12 teams who qualify to the Olympics, and 4 of them get knocked out after qualifications. So what I did here was I used it on the World Championships in 2023. Our big rival for the bronze medal was Great Britain, so I focused this set of Monte Carlo simulations just on that matchup. But certainly, like I did in figure skating, I could do it for however many athletes and teams you would want to include. And so in 2022, we had lost to Great Britain at World Championships, and that cost us an opportunity to qualify the team for Paris early. And so we were really keen on trying to realize some improvements in our performance for 2023 Worlds. So we had sufficient difficulty. We were light on the execution side. And so the things that we were asked were at the bottom there. So what are our chances of beating Great Britain? Just to help people understand how close it was likely to be and how much pressure would be on them. Basically, how likely was the competition to be, difference less than 1 point, 2 points, 3 points out of 250. Then we had this quad strategy of building up difficulty and then trying to ramp up the execution. So this was also a test of whether we were being successful there. And then what were likely to be the highest leverage events. And then also, could we do live tracking? So I'm going to jump to that really quick. Okay, so cutting to the chase, we won our first team medal since 2014, which was a huge achievement for our guys, and so now they're medal contenders for Paris. We also won, so Fred Richard, third from the left, won a bronze medal in the individual all-around, and then Koi Young, who's right in the middle, he won 2 individual silver medals. So that was a huge haul for our team. So I did all kinds of statistics on the different apparatus, and basically, finally, the win probability by routine. So I'll just stop there. There are lots of other sports where you could apply this. If you want to talk about that, come find me or come find Dan. We'd love to talk to you about it. But let's go to Q&A.
Hi, Adam Minter, Bloomberg. Really interesting presentation.
Thanks, Adam.
I'm curious, what's our sense of what other countries are doing? Is there an analytics gap? Are U.S. rivals doing stuff that we're not doing in terms of video tagging, that kind of thing? And what kind of disadvantages the U.S. have?
Yeah, it's a great question, Adam. So I would say it's a mixed bag, and it depends on the sport. So different countries, make decisions about which sports they want to focus on. So in some particular sports, there may be countries that are doing more than we are in that sport. One of the things about U.S. that's unique is we're competitive in so many sports, and we want to support all of them. Whereas other countries, like an example might be Netherlands in speed skating, since Selena is here. I'm going to call out the Netherlands. They're dominant in speed skating, so much of their sport science and analytics effort goes into that sport. So it really runs the gamut from we're ahead to we're behind to we're right on par. But we always want to do more and get better.
Yes, I was just curious if you've looked at algorithms for multiplayer sports, not just team versus team, but ranking many individuals and their outcomes, and which algorithms you used or are looking at.
So ranking individuals and their outcomes. I mean, when we've done this approach to Monte Carlo, it's pretty simple. As I mentioned, we characterize their performance or performances from that season based on mean and standard deviation. And so that's what we use when we're working up to a particular competition to try to predict what the result is going to be and how it's going to compare with, the probabilistic range that the other competitors can achieve. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure I fully gathered what you were asking.
Sorry, not really. Asking more.
Use the mic.
Sorry.
And introduce yourself.
I'm Jason Martin from Amwager. We do betting online. Anyway, more looking at, are you using just the standard ELO calculation, or are you looking at MMR, True Skill, other calculations for multiplayer rankings? Oh, yeah, no,
for this particular analysis, so Dan gets into all those details with the ELO rating-based Monte Carlos and predicting medal expectancy. For these simulations that I'm showing here, it's literally just, I'm looking at it, everyone gets a distribution to characterize their scores, you roll the dice, and you see what happens in that mock competition. You run it 10,000 times, you sum it all up, and you see what the range of possible outcomes is. So this is completely unsophisticated.
Hi, my name is Malcolm Lau. I'm from the Singapore Sport Institute.
Hi, Malcolm.
Hi. I'd like to ask, so given all these insights, how do you actually work with the various front offices and the coaches to actually, translate this to actionables?
Yeah, it's a great question, Malcolm. So the way we're structured at the USOPC is we have high performance teams, or we call them sportfolios. So there are, for the Olympic event, for the Winter Olympics, there's one, all the Winter Olympic sports are in there. And then for the summer, we're organized with 4 different sportfolios. And so we work closely with them. And then we work with them to work with the given national governing body, and our interface with a national governing body would typically be the high performance director. And then in some cases as well, it could be coaches, yeah, or chief of sport, depending on how that sport is organized.
I think we have time for one more question.
Oh, there's one in front here, David.
Hi, Gabriel Outschler. Thank you.
Hi.
The talk, really interesting. I was just wondering, when you're in an in-game situation, would you ever look at the betting markets to see where their probabilities are and how well you align to those?
So I'm pretty ignorant about betting markets, and maybe Dan or Selena can help me out here, but I don't think there's a whole lot of betting going on in Olympic sports. Yeah, so that's not a data source that we've typically tried to use. Yeah.
All right, thank you everyone for your questions.
Thank you.